Hi guys. Okay, if you're here, yes, I have a YouTube channel. You probably know me, but if you don't, my name is Shanvi Verma and I'm 14 years old. Honestly, I never thought I would have a YouTube channel, but you know, quarantine can do some things to you. So I'm here and I have a YouTube channel. Honestly, the reason I made this YouTube channel is because with so many things going on around the world, I feel like I need to share my perspective, because usually adults think that anything that comes out of children's mouth or teenagers' mouth, it's like we don't have a perspective, we're not allowed to have a perspective. And as a teen, I feel like in lockdown, all of us realized that we do have a voice. And the reason I made this YouTube channel is to share my perspective on cases worldwide, ranging from racial inequalities to murders. And honestly, if you feel like you're interested in these things and like these things are intriguing and you're curious to know what goes on around the world, then please stay tuned. Thank you. Okay, now moving on to today's video, let me set up a scene for you. So imagine that you're walking in an empty park at 10 a.m. in the morning. You're running errands and you're done. You're going home, so you're at the exit. And you're just looking around in the park, and which is supposed to be, you know, full of greenery and like nature-ish things. But then suddenly to your right, you see something that's not greenery or nature that or supposed to be in a park. What you see is so blindingly white that you think, oh, it can't be anything else other than an artificial model or a mannequin. And it's just laying in the park out of nowhere. You're confused and you're curious, obviously. So at a closer look, you realize that not only is it just so extremely white, but it's also cut up in the middle. Basically, it's like half it's gone, like it's just cut up in the middle. And you go closer because you're curious what could be so white. And when you go closer, you realize that what you see isn't an artificial model or a mannequin, it's a corpse. It's a corpse, it's a dead body. This is exactly what Betty Bersinger experienced and saw on the morning of January 15th, 1947. She had just discovered the body of Elizabeth Short, more famously known as the Black Dahlia. The victim herself, Elizabeth Short, was just 22 years old. She was an aspiring actress living in Long Beach, LA, just a few hundred meters away from Leimert Park, where she was found murdered. As her friends and family said, she was a very generous and kind person, and she had some very bold fashion choices. She loved to wear the color black, and she had even dyed her hair jet black. In Long Beach, LA, she usually visited a drugstore where the customers and the workers realized this obsession of hers with black clothing and the color black in general. Hence why they gave her the nickname, the Black Dahlia. They also referred to the noir murder mystery film known as the Blue Dahlia, which came out 9 months prior to the murder. The nickname the Black Dahlia, it sounds very nice to say, and in 1940s, the journalists and TV reporters, this is what they needed. They just wanted some spice. They just wanted to showcase the murder as if it was a movie, so that the citizens of the town would just have something fun to watch or read. So they used this nickname, the Black Dahlia, and soon enough, all headlines in towns had the words Black Dahlia in them. The murder itself was so gruesome and brutally carried out, especially for the year 1947. Elizabeth's main cause of death was a hemorrhage on her head and several lacerations on her body, which are basically deep cuts on her body. Her body was found butchered in half. Guys, she was butchered, like literally cut in half. From waist down, her body was gone, though it was found later. Not only that, the main thing that was found on her corpse was that it's so disgusting to say, which is why I'm like slowing down a bit. The culprit cut the corners of her mouth and pushed them upwards, so like the blood is like spilling out and everything, and gave her what we now famously know as the Joker smile. Later we found out that the police found the body when it was scrubbed with alcohol, and it was just soaked and drenched in alcohol, which left no fingerprints whatsoever. While the autopsy reports came out, and the police realized two things. One, the lacerations on her body along with the cut on the waist were both clean cuts, meaning obviously someone trained had to be doing these things. They had to be medically trained to do this. And number two, the hemorrhage on her head was caused by continuous blows or punches on her head. As soon as the murder occurred, the LAPD began their investigation. But they were going to start interrogating people, but they didn't need to because something really weird happened the next day. The next day, right after her murder, 50 plus men and women arrived at the police station claiming to be the culprit, claiming to be the killer of Elizabeth Short. Now, I don't know about you guys, but this sounds really weird to me. Why would you want to claim to be the killer of someone innocent? What pride are you getting by saying, oh, I killed this person? It's not cool, and it's actually just delaying the work of the police. Obviously, the police had no other choice but to interrogate all 50 of them, but obviously they discarded majority of them because they were all pulling some kind of prank, which I find extremely stupid. And honestly, if I was the police, I would jail some of these people because that's delaying a whole investigation. It could be some kind of trick to delay the investigation, or it could be something else related to the killer. The policemen had some beliefs and theories of their own. Some policemen thought that the culprit might have never known Elizabeth, and also that her murder was part of some serial killing spree. Meanwhile, some others thought that the culprit actually did know Elizabeth beforehand, which would explain the Joker smile and the lacerations on her body, which are clear signs of personal vendetta. Another theory that the policemen thought of was that the culprit had to be medically trained. Now, if you remember, both the cuts on her waist and the lacerations on her body, they were both clean cuts that only someone that was medically trained could carry this out. And also another theory that they had was that the murderer was not only one person. And honestly, I agree with that theory, because if they weren't medically trained, one person couldn't carry this out. Two or more people have to carry this out because it was so perfectly done. Plus the scrubbing of alcohol on the body to leave no fingerprints, that was a very smart move. And honestly, if one person didn't do it, I would not be surprised. A year later, in the year of 1948, there were a total of 192 suspects. However, there were two main suspects that the police always kept an eye on. The first one being Robert "Red" Manley. The reason why Robert "Red" Manley is one of the main suspects in this case is because he was the last person seen with her, and this was on January 9th, 1947, when he was just dropping her off at Baltimore Hotel. But no matter how many times the police interrogated him, he did take 2 polygraph tests, which he passed, which basically means that he's not the killer. But one random fact about him that I found really sus was the day he died. He died on January 9th, 1986, which is exactly 39 years after he was last seen with her. This is really, really far-fetched, but at the same time, if he was actually the killer, he would have, hopefully, if he's human, he would have some kind of remorse or guilt, and he decided to die exactly 39 years after he was last seen with her. The second main suspect of the case is Dr. George Holl. Honestly, if this man was the culprit or the killer of this case, I wouldn't be surprised because the amount of evidence against him would make sense. The first piece of evidence is actually in his name. His name is Dr. George Holl. He's a doctor. He is medically trained and has the capability of butchering up someone and making it look so clean. Also, he could carry out lacerations easily if he's a doctor. The next piece of evidence is that he's an owner of a black car, which the neighbors in Leimert Park saw parked outside Leimert Park right after she was murdered, like the night before, and the car that the neighbors saw was black. And George Holl had the same car, same color, but right after she was murdered, he sent it to a repair shop and told the people who were there to paint it orange. Yeah. Wow. Honestly, I was actually really shocked when I read this, because I was like, that's such a big coincidence, but maybe it's not a coincidence. I don't know why he did that. Probably he's a killer. Next piece of evidence is that George Holl was actually a huge artist. He really loved art and was inspired by this one artist that was really famous for painting pieces related to the Joker. Now, if you remember, Elizabeth Short had a Joker smile on her face. Now, all this evidence is really getting mysterious, and I really like it, because George Holl, if he was the killer, which I believe he is, literally gave Elizabeth the Joker smile. The next piece of evidence, oh my god, let's take a break because that's a lot to take in personally. The next piece of evidence is that there was not, okay, these are all pieces of evidence, but there was no hard evidence found on him, like his fingerprints on her body or something like that. So the police obviously couldn't arrest him. So in 1950, 3 years later, he moved to Philippines, Manila. So that happened. He literally moved to the Philippines. Why did he move to the Philippines? Was he scared of staying in the US because he would get caught? So he literally moved to a whole other continent, the Philippines. And not so coincidentally, in 1967, a woman was found murdered in the exact same way that Elizabeth Short was murdered. Her body was found naked in a park, hands raised above her head, and her body cut in half. Guys, the man moved to the Philippines, and 1967, this murder occurred. Yeah, suspicious. But in 1950, another thing occurred. One piece of evidence against him, which I found so amazing, so, oh my god, like that type of feeling, was that George Holl was actually the father of Steve Holl, who was a homicidal detective on the investigation itself. And what's so funny is that Steve Holl is the person who reported his father, George Holl, as one of the prime suspects of this murder case. Guys, I don't know about you, but I really think he's the killer. And honestly, if you look it up online, like who is the murderer of the Black Dahlia, his name would come up. Dr. George Holl. He's probably the murderer. But they didn't arrest him. Which, I don't know why, but you know, that's it. This was the Black Dahlia murder case. Honestly, now that I've reviewed it with you guys, I've actually realized that it's not as complicated as police made it in 1947. First of all, the time period. If a similar case, or even the exact same case, occurred in today's day and age, I personally think it could have been solved. I'm 99% sure that it could have been solved. First of all, the police wouldn't allow Dr. George Holl, a suspect like him, to escape literally from the continent. I feel like they would keep him in like touch, or even keep him in jail, honestly, with the amount of evidence against him. Secondly, in 1947, I realized that the police allowed lots of local people to be involved in the case. The 50+ men and women that arrived at the police station claiming to be the killer and all that apparently was all a prank. I don't think in today's day and age the police would tolerate such things. The main reason why I think the Black Dahlia murder case could have been solved in today's day and age is because, you have to admit it, Elizabeth Short was a white woman. Now, it sounds harsh, but honestly, in the media, personally, whenever I've checked the newspapers or BBC News, I've never seen a white woman's murder that was this brutal been left unsolved. I know it's harsh, it sounds harsh, and it really is harsh, but it's the truth. It's harsh truth. Mostly when it's a white person, their family is given justice. that cannot be said for people of color, especially in today's day and age. And there's been so many cases going on today about people of color being murdered and them not getting justice. So I hope that you guys enjoyed this video, and I hope you learned something new. I hope you guys got information about the Black Dahlia murder case, and I hope you'll stay tuned for more videos. Thank you.